Welcome. This is for executive level management, directors, project leaders. This is to ensure that you can speak correctly and use the best vocabulary to accurately describe what you're doing. To reconcile with, it means to make two different or opposing financial accounts, strategies, or viewpoints agree or become compatible. For example, we must reconcile our aggressive market expansion strategy with our current cash flow constraints. Or the CFO, this is Chief Financial Officer, was unable to reconcile the Q2 expenditure reports with the approved corporate budget. So let's have a look at it in context. The finance team worked late into the night to reconcile the company's internal ledger with the official bank statements. They needed to account for every transaction from the past quarter to ensure there were no missing entries. After hours of tracking down outstanding invoices and cross-checking receipts, the accountants successfully balanced the books. This process allowed the director to trust the final budget reports before the annual audit. So let's just have a look also at tracking down. Tracking down outstanding invoices. To track down something means to spend time searching for it, to find it, and successfully find it. And note also the pronunciation of receipts. Cross-checking receipts. The P is silent. We don't say that in English. Let's move on to our next one. To double down on. This is to significantly increase a commitment, a strategy, or investment in a particular course of action, despite risks. The board decided to double down on our artificial intelligence initiatives to maintain our competitive edge. Instead of pivoting, the executive committee doubled down on their original turnaround plan. So to pivot would be to change direction. So instead of changing, they doubled down on their original plan. Let's have a look in context. After their initial software update received rave reviews, the tech startup decided to double down on their mobile app development. Instead of splitting their limited budget across multiple marketing campaigns, they funneled all remaining capital and engineering hours into adding new features to the platform. This aggressive strategy paid off, as the focused effort allowed them to capture the majority of the market share before their competitors could react. So we see how they doubled down on their investment. And this aggressive strategy paid off. If it paid off, it means it was profitable, perhaps to do with money, but if something pays off, it means you are successful at it. Let's move on to our next slide. Hollow out. This is to weaken the core structure, capabilities, or middle management of an organization by removing valuable components. So to hollow out is to weaken something, removing the core. Excessive outsourcing risks hollowing out our internal research and development capabilities over time. The rapid downsizing strategy effectively hollowed out middle management, leading to severe operational bottlenecks. So let's have a look at it in context here. So the shift towards automation and offshore manufacturing threatens to hollow out the city's working class. Over the last decade, regional factories closed down, removing the stable mid-level jobs that once supported thousands of local families. This economic shift leaves the community divided between high-earning tech executives and low-wage retail workers, with almost no middle ground left. Without intervention, local leaders worry the town will lose the vibrant middle class that once formed its core. First of all, let me just draw your attention to hollow out. You see how it is used in the present, hollow out, or hollowed out in the past. and hollowing out, continuous. Secondly, let's just have a look at once supported. So once can mean one time. I did it once. But they're talking here about mid-level jobs that once supported thousands of local families. So in this way, the once is talking about a previous situation, because once supported, so it links it with the past. In the past, it used to do that. Now it doesn't. Let's move on to our next one. Zero in on. It's to focus all your attention, resources, or strategic effort precisely on one specific issue, target, or problem. During the crisis meeting, the executive leadership team chose to zero in on supply chain vulnerabilities. Our business analysts zeroed in on the exact demographic driving our recent churn rate. So during the quarterly review, the marketing directors stopped reviewing broad audience statistics and decided to zero in on the 18 to 24 age demographic. Their data showed that while overall website traffic was dropping, this specific group brought products at double the rate of any other segment. By focusing their entire creative budget on social media platforms favored by these young consumers, the brand quickly reversed its declining sales trend. So if we have a look here again, zeroed in on in the past and zero in on is the present. Let's have a look here at their data showed that while overall website traffic was dropping. So while very often used next with an ing form, while something was dropping. The specific group bought products at double the rate. Okay, so it's showing a contrast here. While this was happening, on the other side, this was happening. So we can use while to show contrasts of things happening at the same time. In our next section here, we're going to look at some advanced vocabulary. So we have 4 sections of vocabulary, phrases, and idioms, and then we have 2 more sections at the end where we're going to look at some practice exercises to test what you have retained. So here we start with paradigm. A distinct set of concepts, thought patterns, or operational standards that define a legitimate contribution to a field. For example, the shift towards decentralized autonomous organizations represents a complete paradigm change in corporate government. Senior leadership must establish a new operational paradigm to successfully navigate this macroeconomic volatility. So you can see how we can almost replace paradigm with standards. So paradigm is a much better word to use. The widespread adoption of remote work represented a massive paradigm shift for corporate culture. For decades, the dominant business model dictated that maximum productivity could only occur inside a traditional office building under direct supervision. However, the success of distributed teams proved that employees could remain highly efficient from anywhere, forcing executives to completely rethink their management styles, technology investments, and corporate real estate needs. In a real-life situation, if you think of during the COVID pandemic, it forced this massive paradigm shift where we managed people differently. We worked in different locations, and it also led to changes in office structures, from closed offices to open areas where people could almost share desks on the days they were in the office. Fiscal is our next word, relating to government revenue, taxes, or the overall financial management and budgeting of an organization. For example, the board demanded stricter fiscal discipline across all global subsidiaries to preserve shareholder value. our projected fiscal outlook remains strong, driven by robust recurring revenue streams. The government announced strict austerity measures to address the growing national deficit before the end of the fiscal year. The newly appointed Treasury Minister introduced a comprehensive strategy that combines spending cuts across public sectors with targeted tax hikes for luxury imports. These progressive adjustments aim to stabilize the country's shaky economic foundation, reassure international investors, and ensure long-term stability in future budget cycles. So let's just draw your attention first of all to spending cuts. Okay, so we have, sounds like opposites here, to spend and to cut. So spending cuts means to put a block, a halt on spending and reduce it. If something is hiked, this is not to hike, as in to walk in the mountains, but tax hikes means tax increases. And the deficit is the difference between what we have. The difference between could be income and expenditure. Next up, we have synergistic. This is relating to the interaction of two or more elements, such that the total effect is greater than the sum of the individual effects. So synergistic is about the synergy, it's about combining. The merger generated significant synergistic value, optimizing our supply chains and cutting redundant overheads. We are actively seeking synergistic partnerships that complement our core technological competencies. So let's have a look at this in context. The merger between the organic farm and the local juice company created a highly synergistic partnership. By combining resources, the farm secured a guaranteed buyer for its entire harvest, while the juice manufacturer gained direct access to premium raw ingredients without middleman fees. This shared supply chain slashed waste and shipping costs for both parties, generating combined profits that far exceeded what either business could have achieved on its own. So the synergy is about combining two things and both become more successful because of it. Let's just have a look at slashed. The supply chain slashed waste. So slashed is to cut, but it gives you the impression that it's a big cut. If you slash waste, it means that you've reduced it by a significant amount. Next up, we have in perpetuity. This is lasting for an indefinite period, valid forever or indefinitely. The licensing agreement grants our firm the rights to use the patented technology in perpetuity. We cannot subsidize underperforming regional branches in perpetuity without seeing a clear path to profitability. So it's saying that we cannot do these things indefinitely, forever. The wealthy philanthropist donated her historic downtown estate to the city under the condition that it remain a public park in perpetuity. The legally binding agreement dictates that the land can never be sold to private developers, subdivided, or used for commercial real estate. To ensure the park's upkeep for future generations, she also established a trust fund that will automatically pay out maintenance costs every year, preserving the green space forever. Let's just have a look at our words in bold, in black. So the legally binding agreement. If something is binding, it's tying you together, linking you together legally in this case, the binding agreement. So it cannot be changed. You cannot escape it. And to ensure the park's upkeep. Upkeep is a nice word, can be used for many things, but it's the general care and maintenance of something, to keep up something, the upkeep. Next up, we have imperative. This is a vital, unavoidable factor, duty, or strategic requirement that commands immediate action. Digital transformation is no longer a luxury. It is a strategic imperative for institutional survival. Enhancing our cybersecurity infrastructure has become a matter of operational imperative for the board. So let's have a look in context. In a rapidly shifting market, it's imperative for leadership to diversify the company's product line before the core revenue streams begin to stagnate. Relying entirely on a single legacy software product leaves the firm exposed to agile competitors and sudden technological disruptions. Developing new cloud-based solutions is not merely an optional growth path. It is an absolute strategic necessity to protect the organization's market share and guarantee long-term financial viability. So if it is imperative, it is critical, incredibly important. Let's have a look, first of all, at stagnate. If the revenue stream begins to stagnate, if we think of something that is not progressing at all, to stagnate is not moving. And to be exposed, it means that it is open, visible, but in a negative way. So to be exposed is to associate risk with it. You don't want to feel exposed, and you don't want something to be exposed. You will often hear this in terms of risk, where they talk about it exposes a company to risk. It exposes the product to risk. So in our next section now, we've got some idioms. To move the needle. This is to generate a significant, noticeable, or measurable impact on a business metric or situation. For example, small cost-cutting measures will not suffice. Not suffice, it means it is not enough, not adequate. So small cost-cutting measures will not suffice. We need a flagship product that will truly move the needle. Despite a multi-million-dollar marketing campaign, the new launch failed to move the needle on market share. So in context, the marketing team realized that micro-influencer campaigns were generating brand awareness, but failed to move the needle on actual retail sales. To drive measurable revenue growth, the executive board redirected the budget toward an aggressive nationwide holiday discount structure and primetime television advertisements. This high-impact strategy successfully shifted consumer behavior, resulting in a 30% spike in quarterly transactions, and proving that a larger centralized push was necessary to impact the company's bottom line. So a spike, if there's a 30% spike, this is an increase, a very sharp, sudden increase in a trend. And the bottom line is the most important factor in something. It could be the bottom line is your required target. The bottom line is what you need to make profit on something, what the company needs. The most important factor can be used in negotiations too. Your bottom line is your absolute requirement. Next up, we have to put the cart before the horse. This is to reverse the proper, logical, or strategic order of tasks or decisions. Allocating a capital budget before completing the market feasibility study is putting the cart before the horse. We are putting the cart before the horse by designing the marketing campaign before finalizing product specifications. So we can see here that to put the cart before the horse, it's saying that it's not logical, it seems a bit stupid. So in context, the tech startup began hiring a large customer success team before they had even finished building their prototype app, completely putting the cart before the horse. Without a working product on the market, the new employees had no user issues to resolve or technical bugs to troubleshoot. Management soon realized they had reversed the logical order of operations. They needed to focus their capital on software engineering first before scaling up their support staff. So let's just draw your attention to scaling up. So scaling up, a nice word that can be used in many situations in business, in meetings. To scale up is to make something bigger, to increase it, put more resources to it. So make it larger. We look at tech companies in particular, let's say with a startup. They start small, and then, depending on the company, they could scale up quite quickly. So everything grows, production increases, staff increases, perhaps premises. They also need to scale up the premises if they have more employees. Next up, we have read between the lines. It's to look for, understand, or infer a hidden meaning or unexpressed intention that is not explicitly stated. To infer is to use the information that you have from what you hear. This is very important in negotiations. We have to read between the lines. So we need to hear, to infer what the person is actually trying to say, what the actual requirement is. Reading between the lines of the competitor's quarterly report, they are likely preparing for a massive divestment. Experienced leaders read between the lines of employee feedback surveys to gauge true organizational morale. Let's have a look in context. So during the tense geopolitical negotiations, diplomats had to carefully read between the lines of the Prime Minister's official press release. While the public statement loudly praised the historic ceasefire agreement, it notably omitted, left out, didn't include, any mention of removing troops from the disputed border zones. By analyzing the strategic silence rather than the written text, international observers correctly deduced that military tensions remained incredibly high, despite the public display of peace. Next up we have is to keep your cards close to your chest. This is to be highly cautious, secretive, or discreet about your strategies, intentions, or negotiating positions. During the initial merger discussions, both chief executives kept their cards close to their chests, so they were very discreet, very perhaps secretive. It's critical to keep our cards close to our chests until the patent application is officially secured. During the high-stakes acquisition talks, the tech CEO, so Chief Executive Officer, decided to keep his cards close to his chest regarding the company's upcoming AI patent. While the rival firm pushed for full disclosure during the initial valuation meetings, he revealed only basic financial metrics and operational data. By withholding the proprietary source code and technical benchmarks until the final contract was drafted, he prevented the competitors from stealing the architecture or driving down his selling price before the deal was locked in. So to be locked in means to be finalized, to become binding. Next up, we have to hit the ground running. This is to start a new venture, project, or executive role immediately with maximum energy, efficiency, and productivity. The newly appointed Chief Operating Officer, COO, is expected to hit the ground running on day one. We provided the consultancy firm with all necessary data beforehand so they could hit the ground running. Beforehand means before they started. The new project manager knew she had to hit the ground running on her very first day at the engineering firm. Because the client's construction deadline was only 3 weeks away, she bypassed the usual multi-day orientation process and dove straight into the active blueprints. By noon, she had already met with the lead architects, resolved a critical supply chain bottleneck, and reassigned tasks to keep the team on schedule without losing a single day of momentum. So to dive into, the infinitive. To dive into something means to jump into it. It's to go directly to that. Core competency. Okay, we're looking now at more strategic phrases in our section 4. The core competency is a defining capability or advantage that distinguishes an enterprise from its competitors. We should divest from our peripheral logistics operations and focus entirely on our core competency of software development. The executive team identified proprietary data analytics as our primary core competency. Let's have a look in context. The logistics giant decided to outsource its customer service and tech support operations so it could focus entirely on its core competency, global supply chain management. While the company excelled at tracking freight, optimizing delivery routes, and managing warehouse robotics, its internal IT departments were slow and expensive to maintain. By handing those secondary technical tasks over to specialized third-party firms, the corporation freed up capital to expand its shipping fleet and dominate its primary market. So having a look at, in bold, while the company excelled. So again, you see it's showing us our contrast here. While the company excelled at tracking freight, its internal IT departments were slow and expensive to maintain. Next up, we have disruptive innovation. This is an innovation that creates a new market and value market, eventually disrupting and displacing established market leaders. The committee is evaluating whether this new blockchain startup poses a threat of disruptive innovation to our business model. Management must foster an internal culture of disruptive innovation to prevent obsolescence. The rise of digital streaming platforms serves as a textbook example of disruptive innovation within the entertainment industry. Initially, these services offered low-quality video and limited catalogs compared to established cable networks and video rental giants. However, by leveraging internet convenience and cheap subscription models, they captured an overlooked segment of tech-savvy users before rapidly improving their technology. Eventually, this shift completely redefined consumer expectations, making traditional physical rentals obsolete and forcing massive media conglomerates to completely overhaul their business models to survive. So we have a lot of nice vocabulary in here. Let's start with leveraging. By leveraging internet convenience, to leverage something is to make use of it to strengthen your point. And an overlooked segment. If something is overlooked, it means it's something you ignore. It's not your main focus. You are looking elsewhere. Tech savvy. Savvy means that you know a topic very well. You have a lot of expertise in it. And to completely overhaul their business models to survive. So to overhaul is to completely change. So it's to pivot, to change direction, and completely redo something. Almost like starting from scratch, starting from the beginning, and overhauling it. Next up, fiduciary duty. A legal and ethical obligation to act solely in the best financial and strategic interest of another party. The board has a strict fiduciary duty to reject any acquisition bid that undervalues the company's assets. Mismanaging corporate funds is a direct and severe breach of an executive's fiduciary duty. So to breach something is to go beyond the limits, beyond the borders of it. The investment fund manager faced a severe lawsuit for breaching his fiduciary duty to his clients. Instead of managing the retirement portfolios with the promised caution and care, he secretly funneled millions of dollars into high-risk startups owned by his close relatives. Because his legal obligation required him to act solely in the best financial interests of his investors, using their capital to benefit his own family constituted a direct violation of that trust, leading to his immediate termination, he was fired, and a formal regulatory investigation. Here we have corporate governance. This is the systemic framework of rules, relationships, systems, and processes by which corporations are directed and controlled. Institutional investors are demanding greater transparency and stricter corporate governance from the leadership team. Our updated corporate governance policy outlines clear ethical boundaries for executive compensation. Following a series of accounting irregularities, the Board of Directors implemented a strict new corporate governance framework to restore investor trust. The updated policy introduced independent oversight committees, enforced transparent financial reporting standards, and separated the roles of CEO and chairman to prevent a concentration of power. By establishing these clear rules, practices, and accountability mechanisms, the firm ensured that executive decisions would align directly with the long-term interests of shareholders and regulatory bodies. So to align directly with something, it means that it is working with it, alongside it. Let's just have a look at oversight as well. Introduced independent oversight committees. So remember we talked earlier about to overlook. So to overlook is to not see something. But oversight is different. Oversight is like the big picture. A bird's eye view is another idiom. So it's to see everything. To provide oversight is to supervise and be sure of everything that is going on. Next up we have economies of scale. This is the proportionate saving in costs gained by an increased level of production or operational throughput. Consolidating our manufacturing facilities into a single mega plant will allow us to achieve massive economies of scale. Small startups often struggle to compete with legacy enterprises because they lack the necessary economies of scale. Let's have a look at it in context. So remember we talked about to scale up is to increase something, to make it bigger. So here we're talking about economies of scale. By expanding its production facilities from a single regional plant to 3 automated factories, the auto manufacturer achieved massive economies of scale. In the past, purchasing steel in small quantities kept the raw material cost per vehicle exceptionally high. However, by doubling its production volume, the company negotiated steep volume discounts on bulk metal, optimized factory floor robotics, and spread fixed overhead costs across millions of units, allowing them to slash the final retail price of their electric cars and undercut competitors. So it's a nice example here in context, talking about economies of scale. So scaling up, but scaling up with an economy of scale. So buying in bulk. They talk about bulk metal. When you buy in bulk, you buy in large quantities. We looked at earlier at slash. So to slash the final price means to cut it, but it's a big cut to slash. And to undercut your competitors, this is what you want to do. You want to perhaps offer your product at a cheaper price, so you undercut your competitors. If their price is 10 euros per unit and yours is 9 euros per unit, you undercut them. Let's have a look and see what information you have retained. So select the definitive option that best satisfied the strategic context of the sentence. So first up, we have the legal team advised the board that failure to disclose the environmental liabilities violated their... So correct answer is C, fiduciary duty. Because we're talking about the legal term, we're talking about liabilities, so it's your fiduciary duty. If we want to capture the European market, we must stop playing safe and our regional distribution network. To double down on. We need to double down on our regional distribution network. Because hollow out, remember, is to remove the core, make it weaker. And to claw back is to regain something that we lost before. In this case, we want to capture the market, so it's a first time. Double down on what we're doing. The board is hesitant to fund the expansion because the project revenue increases will barely move the needle. So it can't be put the cart before the horse, because that's the illogical, not the right way to do it. And to keep their cards close to their chest, no, it's not about being secretive or discreet. They just hesitate to fund it because they're not sure that it will actually substantially make a difference. Introducing remote work models required senior management to completely rethink their operational paradigm. I hope you got that. Let me know in the comments below how you're doing with your answers. Okay, this here is the answer key. So you can just go through it again if you want and double check yourself. Okay, let's go on to the next exercise to fill in the blanks. Okay, we have to select the correct management term from the following list to complete the briefing. So we have economies of scale, clawback, hollow out, and synergistic. The regulatory body empowered the committee to the bonuses of executives involved in the accounting scandal. Which one do you think it is? If you said to claw back, that would be correct, because they want to recover because there's a scandal. So that tells us they need to recover that money. Acquiring our main competitor will yield benefits, expanding our market reach while eliminating overlapping operational costs. So it will yield synergistic benefits, because it's talking about combining here and benefiting. We must expand our production capacity rapidly. Otherwise, we cannot leverage the required to drive down unit costs. I hope you got economies of scale. Aggressive restructuring can lower immediate overheads, but it may ultimately the core competencies of our engineering team. May ultimately hollow out. We're talking about core competencies, so they're linked as well. Right, hope you did well on that. Again, let me know in the comments how you're doing. This one's a little bit different, so it's to rewrite the underlined sections using the advanced managed terminology that we looked at. So what you can do here is just take the sentence, think, pause if you want and write it down, and restructure it so that you can use some of the terminology that we looked at. Right, so we have some clues here to help us. If they are doing things in the wrong order, focus on that. A vital and urgent strategic requirement. All right, are you ready? The answers are coming. Okay, so we had, first of all, clawback, synergistic, economies of scale, and hollow out from exercise 1. And in exercise 2, the first one, if you used putting the cart before the horse in your sentence, well done. Second one, we were looking at an imperative. Urgent and critical and imperative. Third one, they were looking about root causes, so zero in on to get the root cause. And the last one, in perpetuity. Thank you very much for your time. Let me know in the comments what you have learned today and what is going to be most useful for you in your future business dealings. We'll see you again soon.